Have you ever seen a piece of tech that's supposed to make life easier, but instead it just creates a total nightmare? Well, today we're unpacking exactly that. It's a story about how a simple upgrade, a smart electricity meter, spiraled into complete chaos for thousands of families. It's a classic case of good intentions clashing with a very, very messy reality. This quote right here, it just nails the whole problem. Think about it. A company installs a new device, your bill suddenly quadruples, and then somehow the burden of proof is on you to prove that their high-tech system is wrong. I mean, that's a total flip of how accountability is supposed to work, right? And just look at this chart. It really tells the whole story. We're not talking about a small gradual increase here. We're seeing bills jump from a totally manageable 550 rupees to over 2,000, almost overnight. And get this, with absolutely no change in how much energy people were using. Just imagine that shock. So where did this all kick off? Well, that shockwave started in one specific community. Our story begins in Nongmensong, Meghalaya. Residents there thought they were just getting an upgrade. They had no idea they were about to walk straight into a nightmare. It's July 2025. People living in the BSUP housing complex open their new electricity bills, and the numbers are just unbelievable. Folks who are used to paying maybe 500 or 600 rupees were suddenly looking at bills in the thousands, some even as high as 6,000 rupees. You can imagine the panic. It was immediate. Okay, so when bills like that start hitting, people don't stay quiet. The public outcry was massive, absolutely deafening, and that, of course, forced an official response. Which brings us to part 2 of this whole mess, the promise from the authorities to step in and find a solution.
And this is where it gets really ironic. The power minister himself had promoted these meters by promising they would eliminate billing errors, yet here they were creating a brand new and, frankly, much more severe kind of error, massive, unexplainable overbilling.
So to try and calm everyone down, the government came out with this clear 2-step action plan. First, they'd launch a full-blown investigation into what was going on. Second, and this was actually a pretty clever idea, they would install old-school meters right next to the new smart ones to compare the readings directly. On paper, it sounded like a solid plan. But then what happened? Radio silence. Just nothing. The promises were made, the press conferences were held, and then a long, frustrating silence just fell over the whole issue. For the families still paying those crazy bills, well, the wait for answers had just begun. And this timeline really puts that inaction into stark perspective. The investigation was promised back in July. You fast forward to December, that's 5 whole months later, and the public had heard absolutely zero. The issue, it seemed, was just stamped pending and left to collect dust. So after 5 months, there was no report. No announcement about refunds for all the people who were overcharged. And worst of all, the complaints just kept pouring in. The problem hadn't gone away, it was simply being ignored. Now, it's easy to think, okay, maybe this was just a local thing, a glitch in one state's system. But as it turns out, the crisis in Meghalaya was just an echo of a much, much larger problem happening all across the country.
Check this out. At the exact same time, in July 2025, a nearly identical story was unfolding hundreds of miles away in Madhya Pradesh. In the city of Sagar, residents saw their bills jump from around 200 rupees to over 5,000. The technology might have been different, but the outcome was painfully the same.
And this is what we mean when we talk about the human cost. This isn't just about numbers on a bill. One report from Madhya Pradesh mentioned a resident who was forced to pawn their family jewelry just to cover one of these massive, incorrect bills. That's the real-world consequence when a system fails its citizens. So the big question is, why does this keep happening? To really understand that, we need to unpack what's called the technology trap, the deep-seated reason this well-intentioned technology fails so badly and so consistently. The key concept here is something experts call opaque technology. Basically, it's a black box. The smart meter tells you that you owe a huge amount of money, but it doesn't show you its work. You can't check the math, you can't see the process, so you have absolutely no way to challenge it. This black box problem leads to 4 catastrophic failures. 1, people were never taught how to read or even understand the data from their new meters. 2, the formula used to calculate the bill is a secret. 3, when things inevitably go wrong, the process for getting help is completely broken. And 4, at the end of the day, no one is held accountable for the system's errors. And when you add all those failures together, you get this pretty damning conclusion. The technology stops being a service to help citizens. It becomes an incredibly efficient but totally unjust tool for extracting more money from them, whether they actually owe it or not. So, when a system starts extracting money instead of serving citizens, it leads to a whole series of critical, unanswered questions. And that brings us to the final and, frankly, most important part, the call for real accountability. Let's start with the most basic one. An investigation was promised. 5 months have passed. So what did it find? Was it the meters? Was it the software? The public has a right to know what happened. And what about justice for the victims? We need to know how many people were officially found to have been overcharged, and crucially, have they gotten their money back? Which leads to another huge question. If the system is known to be this deeply flawed, causing financial hardship across the country, why is the rollout continuing? Shouldn't the priority be to hit pause and fix the problem first? And that really brings us to our final thought. When a system that's designed to serve the public does the exact opposite, when it traps them, confuses them, and extracts money from them, who is ultimately responsible? That's the question at the very heart of this crisis, and it's one we all need to be asking.